price today. And just a quick note, we've actually modified our format a little bit. So a couple things you might have noticed. One is looking earlier in summer because, you know, we want to get out in the summer. And the other thing too is we altered our formats to basically be, and this is a work in progress, but essentially all the speakers are given a set of questions they have to answer during the presentation. And the presentations will be shorter than they have been. We're rolling this out here in New York to kind of see if we can get to the nub of what is interesting to our membership. And that may also kind of get played out in some of our other global locations. So if you have any feedback, you especially been to a lot of our events, and would like to tell us what you think of this new way that we're approaching, we would love to hear from you afterwards. So this will be just about a little over half an hour, and then we'll have our 5x5, and then that'll pretty much be it. And then we will decamp, and as usual, I ask that we be swift in decamping so that our hosts can clean up and get out of here. We'll meet over across the street at the Tribeca Tavern. So enjoy.
Mark, would you like to say anything?
Welcome.
Our host.
Our host, 360i. Anybody not been here before?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hi. Mark Gavin, head of education and thought leadership here at 360i. We are, let's see if I get this right, we are an integrated, digitally centric agency of creative storytellers and analytical thinkers powered by curiosity, which basically means we do lots of really great stuff for some really amazing clients like Oreo, Oscar Mayer, and Subway, and Clinique, and I'm going to keep you in because you've been more HBO, Haynes, right? Some really fun stuff. We do actually think about storytelling quite a bit, and because I'm taking advantage of this, we have a lot of open positions. We keep hiring lots of smart people. Check out if you're interested in advertising life, which means not sleeping. Careers.360i.com. There are lots of creative opportunities, some tech and tech-related, including videography and things like that. Worth checking out. We love hosting StoryCode. This is our 4th time.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating content. I'm really looking forward to it tonight. Cool.
Thanks, Mark. So if you haven't noticed, the Wi-Fi details are up here, so feel free to tweet or get on Wi-Fi.
Tell me the hashtag.
Hashtag is StoryCode. So if you can tweet, make sure you use that hashtag. So just to introduce Jake. So I met Jake 9 months or so ago at the Film Geek Festival in Miami. And at that festival, I learned about Unknown Spring and Jake's work. Partly also because you took that project into the POV Hackathon, and we're big fans of the work that POV does, and the Hackathon series that they do is really amazing. So we're really psyched to learn about Unknown Spring. So Jake's going to talk about that project, talk about some of his other work, and talk about some future work that you're going to be doing on kind of like a phase 2 for Unknown Spring. So with that, we'll turn it over to Jake.
Well, I really am honored to be here to present. So Anna and Mike, thank you, and 360i, and Mark as well. So thank you so much. Really, really great opportunity. So just a little bit of background information. This was really begun as a project from the heart. I was in New York when the tsunami struck northern Japan about 4 years ago. And I remember waking up and looking at the television, and I thought, oh my God, actually the website, New York Times, I thought, oh, this is really sad, but what can I do? Japan is a rich nation. It's not short of photographers. It's not short on information going out. So I really think about how my photography can help in a situation like this. And the first time I went overseas was to cover anything with Coastal. And I've been to Sierra Leone and Pakistan, Haiti, where I was about 3 months before the tsunami hit. And in Haiti, it was so abjectly poor and awful that I thought photography can really have a role there. So I worked about a year covering it, and at the end of that year I was just really depressed because actually my photography wasn't doing anything and the situation was just getting worse. So I kind of made the decision that I'd had enough of that story. And then when the Japanese earthquake happened, I thought, oh, I really don't know if I want to go back and do this. But there was something nagging at me, and over 48 hours I decided, I've got to go there, I've got to cover this. So I got on a plane and I went, as I'm sure a few of you know, there was something brewing really bad, and that was the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. One of its reactors exploded, hydrogen explosion, and the cesium and a lot of other particulates basically blew across the entire plant. So I'm going to get to that actually at the end, and this is a little bit of a preview of the new project. So when I landed in Japan, it was absolutely raw and desolate. The coast was totally destroyed. And I approached it not so much as a disaster, but from a cultural standpoint. I always had a lot of friends, Japanese friends in my family. One of the things that started to bug me was the fact that the media kept on calling the Japanese stoic. And it was stoic. People were quiet. There was a lot of deeper emotion beneath that stoicism, and I wanted to bring that out and tell a deeper story, at which point now we have the unknown story. And the resulting project was looking at subtle emotions and trying to convey those in terms of the long-term story, not just as a portfolio website, but as something that is chapter-based. So the structure of the site, I thought of it as more like a book where you go into different little compartments, and in those compartments there's a world. I became very close with the community. I didn't have any money, and I didn't have a budget for this, and I'll get to that in a minute. Traveling that way really informed how I interacted with the community, got to know people, and how they got to know me. So just very briefly, I basically had a backpack, a sleeping bag, and a lot of nutrition bars. And I found one place where people were staying. It was kind of a refugee camp, and I made a deal with the person responsible there that I would just stay in the corner and I would sleep there and do my thing and not bother anybody. And the moment I got there, a gentleman came up and said, "No, you can't be here." "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll go wherever, I'll go away. It's going to come with me." And long story short, he offered me a beer and some whiskey and some food, and wouldn't let me eat alone or sleep alone. And I'm still friends with him to this day. I am going to visit him in a week. So having made that connection made me really feel responsible to the community. And I'm going to show a short video here, which is really the foundation of the website. I really felt that I had to make this an extension of their society. And what happened was that if you can just imagine a huge wave coming in and basically just destroying everything for 3 miles inland. And all that's left are maybe some photos or a guitar or some personal items. What happened is that those items were picked up meticulously by volunteers and people who just cared and saved and collected. And I just thought, that's just amazing. That's so beautiful. The result was that they took these items and they brought them into a gymnasium. And for the survivors, that meant that sometimes that was all that they had. Maybe it was just a picture that somebody found 2 miles away from the site of their child's first birthday. So I thought, oh, that's really powerful. And I want to emulate that. So I'm going to show you a video, and then I'm going to come back and just explain a little bit of the structure here. But basically what I was thinking of is that this is a collage, and within each of these little elements here, there's a story. So it's like a box that keeps opening. And this is about a 3-minute video, and it kind of details the collection that was a big inspiration for the site. this was a huge influence for me. I've never seen anything in my life as beautiful as when somebody opened up a family album and every single page, it wasn't just that they saved the picture. It was remarkable that they saved the picture, but the fact that they opened up and got so meticulous that there was this dirty family album and that every single picture on every single page was taken out, washed, the page was washed, the plastic was washed, and then everything was put back in piece by piece by piece. After something as large as an A-bomb just fell in the city, was just remarkable to me. And I thought that that's truly the response to this ugliness, is that people really retain the beauty in the most difficult and harshest of situations. And I hope that the rest of humanity looks at this and becomes inspired and kind of sees this as a way forward as our planet becomes more volatile, because we're all going to be facing situations like this we had just a couple of years ago in Sandy. So I think that they have a lot of lessons to teach us in Tohoku. I think moving on a little bit and talking about the story and the tech side of things, one of the questions was what came first, story or tech? And for me, story always comes first. Without a story, nobody really cares. So I really wanted to touch you and make you feel. That said, we looked at a ton of tech, and we looked at everything that was out there. One of the things that we looked at was this thing called popcorn. And what that is that you're watching a video and a little piece of related content will come up, and you can let the viewer know that there's another path and that there's a lot more information to be gathered. And we thought about it particularly for this video. And in the end, we thought that it would be distracting, and we wanted it to be really meditative quality. So our technological approach was don't use it unless it fits. We considered it flash, but we didn't want it to be flash because we wanted the site to be accessible to everybody. And the designer and coder was just amazing, the shot man, and really thought on this and said, no, the person with the lowest bandwidth on the oldest browser needs to be able to access this. And I thought that was a beautiful approach. And so all of our code, everything, was taken from different sources and then pieced together. So in a way, this is a collaborative project, and there's a lot of collaborators out there that have written snippets that are part of this. And again, I think that goes back into the community kind of thing. Everybody kind of got together and put the reality of the time I was in back together. And so there's also a lot of coders also then helping preserve these stories. So again, I think that source is actually the source code. One of the very kind of basic things that we found, and again, I think it's like going back to the low-tech approach, is in the beginning, you enter the site and you get a collage view. And then you can go back, and our idea would be to have a linear view after you view the first story. People were getting a little bit confused, and what was amazing was just numbering. Just putting a slight little number there gives people a reference, and then they remember. So it's those little kind of tweakings that was very subtle, but they really can kind of like make or break a project. One of the questions was, what are the successes and failures of the project? And I'm going to throw this out too. If you see failures or you have questions, please ask me. I think that when this site was created, I don't really see failures on the idea of the way that it's constructed or how it came together. I'm just amazed that it came together because we didn't have a budget, and I paid for a lot of the trips by sleeping on floors, and the miles and couches for just sleep where I can and get to know people. And people were really generous in that they would drive me because they were interested in wanting to see places. And I realized that I started accepting gifts that people were offering because when you have lost your house and your friends, and the only thing you have is your car, I realized that actually this was a source of pride for people. And so I was very reluctant in the beginning to take it, but in the end I started taking it and then finding different ways to get back, looking at the small things that they might like to have in their lives. And so I searched out. So a lot of the way that I paid for this project is in giving and taking, and that continues to this day. On the monetary side of things, I do have to pay for flights, so I did a lot of small pieces for the BBC. I'm very lucky working for them because they basically let me call the shots and produce what I want. So being so close to the community, I felt that there are certain things that might be too sensitive for somebody who wouldn't have got to see. And so, for example, there was a huge earthquake one night, it was I think 7.2. And we were all in the refugee camp, and there was this one man who had been dragged 2 miles out to sea and was rescued, and he was suffering from PTSD, and that night he was totally breaking down. And I took a few very quick little pictures of him, and they were dramatic and very good, and these are all things that a photojournalist should do, right? Set it out, get it out, let the world see. But I thought, no, that's not the picture I want to show. So I kept it. And again, I think I was very lucky working for people who I did, because they didn't make demands on me, they let me judge what was appropriate for the community. And again, going back to this, this is not a journalistic project. This is a reflection of the community and my feeling for it with journalistic standards. Yeah, so that's really the basis that drove me through this project. Going back to the idea of success and failure, this project was honored World Press Photo, and we were just kind of blown away because we were up against some amazing projects from NPR. There was one funded by Arte and the Sundance Institute that I just have amazing admiration for, called Alma, a Table of Violence. That had hundreds of thousands of dollars of funding, which is absolutely great that I got it. But we didn't have that. So I think, in the success failure thing again, it was just us really wanting to tell the story. And again, credit goes back to the shock, because without his commitment, nothing on the screen would be here right now. And he just really put in so many hours and hours of effort. And I think a lot about that period. It was a really formative period in my life. Basically saying that if you want to go out there and do it, you can. You just need to learn a little bit of the coding and the language. And it's not even that you have to do it yourself, it's just that you have to know enough so that you can communicate with the designer and ask appropriate questions. Otherwise you're dead in the water. So I decided, the shock element was kind of look at it, so we're going to do this, we're going to make it happen. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of funding that we don't have, but we know this is possible. And we know we can do this for very little cash. That's changed now on this project that I'm going to be showing next, the evolution. It's also a 90-minute film, and we wanted to have a different reach, and we want to use different technologies, and we want to hire technologists because we can't keep giving the amount of time we gave on this one. So I kind of think of it in terms of the early days of independent film. We're kind of back in Cassadetti's days, as far as I'm concerned, where you can just pick up a camera and go and run with it. And then there's the next step, and I think that there's just an evolution to these things. But yeah, we're going to do a Q&A after. So thank you. I'm going to move on to the funding part of things, which I've basically touched on already. We learned a ton from doing this, and so it really helps us then reach out to funders, say we know what we're doing, we really have the background, and what I usually do is I just lay down a very simple file in Premiere, authored originally in InDesign or Photoshop. And because I know the limitations of HTML HTML5, I can kind of restrain myself and say to the designer, does this work? What do you think? And he says, oh, this is great. And I say, okay, now can we do this? Can we do that? Can we play with this? And we think about it, and then we kind of come up with a budget for a little wish list, and we say, oh, right, if we get a budget, we want to hit this and this and this. And so it's very precise, and I think that in a way of funding, it shows confidence that we can do this, and people know that they're going to be getting something within a certain time frame. And I think also just on the way of funding, one really great way of looking at these things is chapter-based funding. So you don't have to go and have the whole project funded, but each one of these represents something special. And if you can find an element in that chapter that appeals to a certain group, then you go to that specific group and ask for specific funding. So I'm just going to hop over to a couple of things here. A lot of how I'm conceiving of web docs is that they need to be, and it goes back to the funding, they need to be accepted as an art form onto itself, and important in itself, as a storytelling method. I think a lot of the times on the website, people think, oh, is this a portfolio? I'll put up a couple of pictures, and this is what I do. And that's precisely what we didn't want to do with Unknown Spring, because I just thought it would be an insult to the community if I had said, oh, I took a few dramatic pictures and hired you for another document, the same thing. So I started reaching out to people, and Kino High is a really lovely website. It's not very well known, but it's really, they look at web docs in depth. And I was really happy to have this because then I had a link to give editors, and I said, hey, talk to your book reviewers, talk to your film reviewers, and if you can have them look at my site, I would like to be critiqued on telling the story. And so I think that gives legitimacy to the form. And it's just something that I keep pushing. So there's another review here in Filmmaker Magazine, and it's coming, it's starting. There's a lot of work we need to do, but I think that it's really a great platform. And that brings me to my current project. This is a working title, Unknown Spring Year 3. We're now on Year 4. The first site that I did was really tsunami-based. And there's a huge difference between a tsunami and what's happening to the south of Fukushima. When you have the idea of what a tsunami is and what it does, it's fairly obvious. It destroys the landscape and it sucks people in and spits them out, and there's a lot of dramatic destruction. Not so in Fukushima. Through extensive interviews, I talked to people, and the landscape is very different in that houses remain intact, businesses remain intact, streets remain intact. Nobody can go there because the radiation is so high. And they'll never be able to go back again, and neither will we for our lifetimes, and our children won't either. So in looking at this, I really was kind of chewing on this Fukushima idea when I was down south in Uriage. I thought, I have to hit this, and I have to really talk about this because it impacts all of our lives. And I want to talk for a little bit about the engagement and the impact. I think the engagement and the impact really comes in this iteration. The first one was just a real poetic expression of a place and kind of lending a story to a town that I really care about. I'm not really an advocacy filmmaker, and this site is going to have much of the same feeling as the original one did. But there are issues that we really have to address. I was in Fukushima, looking out over a mountain. It's going to cycle through here in a minute. At basically this beautiful landscape that is pristine and totally uninhabitable right there. There's radioactive isotopes just kind of floating in that fog. And I started doing a little bit of research because I was really concerned about what's happening in my hometown. It was basically underwater. Same situation. And then, oh shit, I started looking at some of the news reports and I realized that Oyster Creek, that has the same exact design as Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power, was on, I think, stage 4 or 5 alert. Water was rising there. It's about 150 miles away from New York City. We have one up the river that's only 25 miles away from the Bronx. Now, the sea levels are rising everywhere, and storms are becoming more fierce. If that was at a level 4 or 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, where is it going to be as sea levels rise in 10 years? I'm talking to Affiliate again about presenting next year in Miami. And again, this is kind of my chapter-based philosophy where I want to show one of the characters as a surfer. She lives on the sea. I want to show that sequence of things and say, Miami, you're facing the same things. And guess what? You have a nuclear power facility that's in the middle of 3 million people. What are we doing about this? This is really serious. So I think going on success and the failure, I really now take that into this site because I am addressing issues and I really need people to engage. At the same time, I am a storyteller. I advocate for things and I want the end result to be two-pronged. I always want the people's voices to be represented in the best and strongest way, and as a result, I never want to see one of these awful meltdowns happen to anybody anywhere else in the world. So the way that we're going to be doing the site is kind of two-pronged, and I think the beauty of a website is that you can have certain bits of information that don't really mess with the narrative. The way that you have in film, where it's either the narrative or it's like a lore. There isn't really anything between. So I conceived this website as complementary and distinct from the film. It's a huge challenge because I'm in the same place and the same characters are going to be on both platforms, but they'll be told in different ways. So I'm going to get into a little bit of what we are preparing for year 3. This is going again on the idea of little boxes containing people's lives and stories. And what I want to really do is also give an idea of location. I want to let this run in the background. This is one of the destroyed towns that I is analogous to Main Street or to any small town in America. And so in each of these dots here are places like this. Each one of these dots is coming out of huge data sets, 1.5 gigabytes of information. So I think that was 5 contracts of paper. And the idea was that we really wanted to give people information, and we also wanted people in Fukushima to be giving us that information. So there's this great organization called Safecast. It's totally user-generated, but it's basically an offshoot of an MIT project. And all of these readings are collected by individuals, and it's a bunch of granular data, so it's very specific Geiger counter readings. And the idea was that we wanted people to have really precise information about where they live. The government puts up Geiger counters in the middle of a town, which is good, and they're not lying. They are giving you good readings, but the way that radiation works is that where I'm standing, it could be a huge hotspot. That if your child made this her little hiding spot at the age of 7, and she went there every day after school, she'd be dead by the time she's 15. Whereas if I'm standing just a little bit away, it's okay. So really, we wanted this to have a very big impact on the community, that anybody can access it and look at it and access it like a weather report. So we're not really partnering with them because the information is out there, but we're getting a lot of really good data from these people at Safecast. And so I think that's also part of the impact of engagement and just moving on with what we can do. On a personal level, I want to read just a personal statement. I think that whenever anybody is dealing with tragedy, and especially if they're coming from a town that people don't know about, like this, it's really hard on them, because what happens is that their identity is effectively erased. They're only known as coming from this really awful place. So, my project, and I'm just about ready to finish up, but I'm going to show one more character piece, and I want to read this. I'll also just let this one. This is Tomoko Kobayashi, and I'm going to really build out this chapter in a very strong way. She comes from a town called Odaka. And it was this really quaint, little, beautiful seaside town, and I visited that place last August, and I don't generally, I generally travel alone. Columbia University basically funded me to tell some stories of survivors of PTSD, and we had a driver kind of take us around, and he kind of zipped through this small town in Odaka. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw this very small tricycle abandoned at a train station, and weeds were crawling up all over it. And it's fairly typical in abandoned towns around, where you just see all these bicycles or things like chopsticks and rice bowls just left. So I was used to seeing inanimate objects like that I kind of animated in my mind to make stories about. And I didn't necessarily want to photograph another train station. But I looked out, oh my God, there's this little tricycle, I have to go back there, I have to get this, because it was next to a more grown-up bike and then an older person's bike. And I thought, oh, it was a family member, so I said, I have to get that picture. And I went back to looking for a scene of destruction, and I thought it was very touching, and I ended up meeting Kobayashi-san. And she was just sitting at this train station that it turned out was a place that she grew up in and played in. And I fell in love with her, and she's so endearing. And she was really lonely. So we started talking, and she was interested in the fact that this person came from so far away to her small village. So I interviewed her. I'm just going to play her story in the background here as I talk. Doing animations. This is an Exodus story. Again, going on the idea that all of these little dots contain a lot of stories. So that was one of them. One of the hardest things that tsunami survivors must cope with is their collective loss of identity. We're all in a part defined by the places from which we come. When the tsunami struck and the power plant melted down, not only did the explosion result in the abandonment and destruction of entire communities, it also erased the identities of thousands of people who had full lives before the disaster struck. Because Fukushima entered into the world's consciousness as only a place of disaster, its inhabitants, as far as the rest of the world was concerned, were defined from the moment the destruction occurred. 2:46 p.m. on the 11th of March 2011, as if they had no prior history. Throughout my time in Fukushima over the past 4 years, so many were eager to share their stories with me and show the precious things from their community that escaped the devastation, some items going back as much as 2,000 years. No person whom I met wanted to be defined by the disaster, but as individuals they still are. By sharing their most intimate thoughts with me and their rich anthropological history, as their love is saying we exist. We're not only refugees, but people with an identity that runs much deeper than the brief news of the day. Please don't forget us. So Unknown Spring is really trying to get back. It's trying to get back to these people, and it just kind of closing here. What Tomoko-san did is that when I came back this past April, she showed me a real rich history of the town. I came back just thinking, oh, I want to ask her a couple of questions about what she liked. And that's the theme of my work. I think rather than say, oh, what do you lose or how do you feel, we know. I really want to know what people love, because I think then we get a little bit of a definition of a person as an individual, and we really get to know what they like. So I thought, oh, if I'm lucky, she'll just take me to a cherry tree because she's a gardener and she really wants things to grow. And what she ended up doing was taking me to this amazing cave sculpture of Buddha that was behind this temple. And it was preserved for 1,600 years, and unless somehow people can return to this town, or at least go and protect these things, they're all going to crumble. So really, what I want to do from this one little tricycle is that I found, there's this amazing sense of history. I got to preserve it, and I want the website to be a part of that. Again, it's the extension of the community. And I think that then our collective humanity and heritage is better for it. So it's just reaching out and telling people stories and just hope that as that is very kind of soft advocacy, we can then look at our own lives and see our own main streets and all the things that are precious in our lives and say, hey, we've got to make better decisions. We've always advanced, we moved from moving sticks, rubbing sticks together, to matches, coal, to nuclear energy, and nuclear energy benefits, our lights are here, and we've lived lives with it, but I just think the cost is much too high now. And it's all too possible that this is going to happen again, and in many other places. So, there we go, and I think it's just really told through these really lovely and enduring, strong things.
Cool.
Thank you.
Jake, thank you so much. So a couple questions. First, before we open it up, you mentioned your tech partner.
Yes.
The shot. How did you find that resource, and how did you? Obviously, you said it was kind of really key to making this a reality.
Right.
How did you find them? How did you develop that collaboration?
The way I do a lot of things over drinks. Basically,
I'm drunk.
I'm friends with his brother, and basically, he told me about the shock, and at this time I was kind of banging my head. This was in the days of my post-Haiti time, and I really got to learn how to code. I was fascinated with the language, actually. Looking at how CSS and HTML and all these things kind of come together. So, just as a linguistic thing, I was interested, and I started talking to this guy in the shop. And just right away, we were just, this is what you do, this is what I do, that's really interesting. We should try to do something together.
And did you guys work on any development before the hackathon, or was that hackathon really the first moment and really were able to get a bunch of work done?
We designed, the first project done in the spring was designed totally without the hackathon. Nothing happened. And I'm glad you mentioned hackathon because I actually for it, and we need to talk about that for a little bit. But yes, basically we had a passion to tell a story, and we basically had a tool set to do it. And we just said, okay, let's go into it, let's jump into it, let's see what comes of it. We've got something good, let's do it. We did a very simple flash site from Haiti. And so we kind of just got to know each other, and it was just kind of it's coming out of passion. Everything that you're seeing here was a huge leap, and that was the POV hackathon. And if you guys don't know about it, or if you do, I think it's invaluable. Do it. You get a huge kickstart out of this. In that everything that you see here was basically done in 48 hours. We laid the whole groundwork down, and the groundwork came from. It was done in 40 hours, and it was also done in 2 years. A lot of the snippets of code were taken from the first Unknown Spring, then put in here, but then we had all of this stuff in there. And what POV let us do is it really let us focus, it gave us a challenge, and then it really brought us to the next level. And then you kind of become a part of something, and they're interested in seeing the site grow. So they've really been with us every step of the way once we've done the hackathon. And I think for me, in doing something like this that's so individual, it's really a great feeling of support that people say, oh, we're an institution, we're going to kind of give you that leg up. And I think, especially as independent storytellers, I don't even care if funding comes from it. I just love the fact that people really care about stories and they get all of the ones they want.
Any questions for Jake?
Comment in English. I was on the website last night, just checking out. And I'm interested in experiential storytelling, and I was very moved by the quietness, the meditativeness, you entered into their lives in a way that was quiet. And that you don't see very often. So I suggest everybody here take a look at it from a quiet point, as if it's your place too. Because we all were affected by Sandy here.
Right. Well, I think this also kind of goes back to one of the technological things that I wanted to say, and that is that we really have the idea of keeping visitors along the site for a prolonged amount of time. And so in looking at, in suggesting pathways, I think if you can get anybody to stay on the site for more than 7 minutes, that's really, that kind of goes to the success and failure category. If you can get people to stay there, that's a pretty amazing chunk of time in our busy lives. And so we wanted to have that meditative quality. I think by having that meditative quality, you're kind of lured into one path and then the next, and so that was definitely part of it. And just the kind of, I think, looking at some of the artifacts, every part of the site was designed so that there's really a pathway going down.
So what is the people from that area? Are they seeing it? And what is their emotional response? What is their connection to seeing their own thing?
Yeah, there is a lot of people are just very thankful, and I think that the way I approached it was that, for example, when nobody's really come up to me, and it's just maybe in some of the quietest ways of my closest friends, they would really appreciate that and say that. I have gotten comments where people that say, "Oh, thank you for not making us look like victims." And a really big goal of mine was in documenting situations. It's really a complex balancing act because I really wanted them to be appreciated and known for the work they were doing in helping the community. But at the same time, I didn't want to just try to spotlight on them and say, "Oh, you're a hero," or I hate those definitions. So I tried to give it a sense of personality and at the same time keep it honest.
Any other questions?
First off, congratulations on the work. I want to ask how much user testing you did, and if so, if you did much user testing, what was your approach?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting that we were having a really big problem with user testing. We gave it out, I gave it out to my friends and this kind of thing. It's interesting that web docs didn't exist when we were doing this. We were all kind of doing it, feeling our way, but as a forum, there weren't a lot of places like POV to reach out to. So in this current project, I am gonna have an inside link, and we're really gonna do a lot of beta testing. At the time, it was about 20 people whom I really trusted. And one of the comments I got out of it was the numbers. They were, "Oh, I'm confused. I'm not getting your navigation." So once we got that thread, then I started putting that out as a questionnaire. Are other people having a problem navigating? And then there's a huge amount of browser testing and that kind of thing. So we really sent it out to people and said, use as many browsers as possible. But I think the new site is going to be very different. I'll probably have a couple hundred people looking at it before it's launched.
Was there a question over here?
Hi, I'm interested also in web documentary, and order to keep people on the site, and I got a little bit of this corroborated last night in the presentation, is that the site content all has to be like little stories that just can be consumed within 2 to 3 minutes max, so that people sense a degree of flow and then automatically know what is their option next to go to. Like it's very helpful to provide them some guidance on additional areas to explore instead of leaving that option open to them. So I was curious, like, when you were conceiving and curating media, did you have a particular similar mindset that this can only be this long? Whereas certain parts of the site are much more, yes, this is a movie, this is feature length, 300-minute segment.
I'm always going to answer those questions. And it's actually very timely you ask that because I've basically been sketching out exactly that on the train over. The big challenge is taking a lot of the information, especially in this town. And for example, there's this amazing cave Buddha. There's an amazing temple. Why should I care? You know, I mean, it's basically that question. And a lot of it is, I think, creating a soundscape for it and a sense of narration so that the human voice is amazing and powerful. And if you can listen to a story and make it effective and have good imagery, and just kind of leave it like, you know, a soap opera, there's just a little something more. Go to that one, go to that next one. I think it can work. And I'm playing a lot, I'm playing a lot with the idea of also poetry. And I want to have these, I want to have a lot of these little vignettes on the website as short poems. Which is also coming out of the Japanese tradition, haiku and Hanbata. And I think, oh, if I can do that, it's also about poetry, so let's go to the next poem as well. But there, yeah, there's always a question of, basically, you know, I always think of it like a box. How can we look at the box and we can help and relate all these little items to each other and the environment and the people around them? So it's an ongoing question.
Cool. Well, was there one more? All right. Last question.
I apologize, I came a little late, but I'm interested in the sound, and I guess the way you're talking about it as putting discrete attention on individuals, but I'm wondering about like the polyphonic atmosphere or the landscape of the sound of the place. Like, obviously you're showing that, a lot of it muted, but I'm not sure how you're conceiving of that.
Right, that's a great question. You know, there's actually a section if you go on to Unknown Spring that is only, it's basically, it's just a sound piece with stills behind it. And when I was in the middle of the disaster zone, sometimes I was just getting depressed myself because all you see is blackness and death. Just one day I was exhausted, so I love sounds, I love the rhythm of sounds, and I'm influenced by them. So I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden, I perceived a whole new world. I heard birds, and I heard some water, and I heard the ocean, and all of a sudden there were all these other influences, i.e. life, around me. And so it really was kind of a dramatic turning point in the project, actually. It's simple act of closing my eyes and listening. And so all of a sudden I thought, oh, if I really want to convey the loss, I don't focus on the loss, I focus on the life that still exists. So how tragic is it to see a cherry blossom tree that survived a tsunami and all of a sudden it's blooming up in the middle of death? And so that, sonically, that's what informed me to look for other things. And so now on this project, I have hours and hours and hours of just field recordings. And that will play a part in this as well. So, you know, there'll be a part where you can click it on and you know, you'll get sounds of Fukushima and you turn it off and you can watch it live. I think that sound environment does create an environment unless you stay there for a while longer.
Awesome. Jay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So, folks can learn more at unknownspring.com.
unknownsring.com, and there's a new one coming, so we're going to have it up and going by the end of the year.
And if anyone, if you're looking for collaborators on that,
I am absolutely always looking for collaborators. We're really kind of in the home stretch here, doing a lot of coding, and if anybody would like to be in touch and help us with that, we're doing some very cool stuff. We're basically coding per chapter now. And we're really looking for a front-end coder. So if anybody knows anybody or would like to join onto the project, definitely get in touch. My email is jake@jakebryce.com.
where you can just grab it.
Or you can just grab me. I'm here. And also you can contact me through Unknown Spring. That also has cool. Yeah, I'm always looking for collaborators, and that's just going to help us enlarge the community. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're going to switch for 5x5. I'm going to make a couple announcements while we do that. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but we put some information out. Dogfish Accelerator has announced a new, what are they calling it? It's the 2014 Dogfish Accelerator Program. So the past 2 or 3 years, it's mainly been focused on filmmakers. What they'll do is they'll bring the filmmakers that get accepted into their space. They'll incubate the project. They'll have mentors that will help kind of mentor it along. They'll award $10,000 and take a small equity stake in the project. But it's an interesting kind of film accelerator program. And this year, for 2014, they're opening it up, and they're aggressively looking for cross-platform storytellers, immersive media makers, basically the folks in the StoryCode community. So if you have a project that is sort of cooked, and you've got a demo reel, and you've got some stuff that you can submit, definitely check it out. If you go to Dogfish Accelerator, you just Google to find that information there. There's also a very cool prize for future storytelling, which is an awesome conference that happens in early November. And if you go to futurestorytelling.org, I think it is, just kind of look for the prize. Basically, you can submit a project that was released this past year. There's actually a $2,500 prize for the winning project, and then the semifinalists will get to attend the conference. And it's a really good conference, so if you have a project you might want to consider applying.
And just a reminder, next month is August, it's the month we do our summer social. We're going to be combining with the New York video meetup, and we're going to do our social together. I don't have a location yet, but we'll send out the meetup invites, and then we're back here in September. Oh, sorry, 5x5. The clock is on. I'll let you introduce yourself and your project.
Great, thanks a lot. So thank you for having us. We're in Tangle, and Jake, that was awesome. So thanks, that was really great. We're in Tangle, so super quick. In Tangle, Luke Schantz, Pierre DNA. Pierre DNA, I'm theater. I went to theater school, Tisch School of the Arts, 20 years as a performer, and I got an idea about how it was time to be as reactive to online video audiences as you could be on stage to live audiences. So they laugh at your jokes and you do it again, they don't laugh and you do your joke again, kind of thing. And to be that reactive and be able to listen at that fidelity with online video, that was where the idea came from. And then I worked on it for a while then at Luke, and Luke has really accelerated the project forward. So basically we are now in a private beta. We have some enterprise clients that we're working with, and I'll just walk you through what we're doing. So what we like to do is start with a little humor. So the current way that video is monetized online, if you're watching video, you have pre-rolls, pop-ups, and that's how they get YouTube, that's how they make money, right? But who is actually watching these pre-rolls or getting anything from these advertisements? You're more likely to complete Navy SEAL training than to click on a pop-up advertisement. 93% of people who are confronted with a pre-roll ad, if you're watching video, that pre-roll thing, 93% of people click away the first 7 seconds, which means not only did they not see the commercial, they didn't see the video that they intended to watch in the first place. But still, $4 billion are spent in the U.S. on those two kinds of advertising vehicles. And, it's clearly the emperor has imposed, but we don't know, or we don't have any alternatives, at least we don't think we do, until the interactive video providers that are out there. We have a bunch of people right now, we're just talking about a couple of centuries. There's Interlude FM, there's this one called Rap Media, super cool companies who are doing interactive video platforms that allow creators and content producers to make videos that engage their audience and basically ask them to participate in a video while you're watching it. And ours is similar. So we track and tag objects in videos. We do motion tracking, we do object tracking, face tracking. We get all sorts of blogs, and then we actually tag those blogs and we give them information. So this is George B. Style, this is Mary Maisie, this is all the products and various pieces of information that are in this video. You can link to Wiki, to other videos, to retail, to social. So you're watching a video, you click on things and you explore. Essentially, it's like a visual search engine laid on top of the video. So you're watching a video, you click on it and you can explore. And what we discovered pretty early on is that just by giving people the option to explore at their own rate, we actually can make money by selling, by doing advertisements. So it's a really interesting model. It's all about exploring, about extending your narrative, right? So here's a video. It's a linear story about an actress who's getting ready for her opening night at a musical. And what we're also linking is who's this guy? Well, he's her stylist, and he's got a whole Twitter feed. You can actually tweet him while you're watching the video. And where is this? Well, they're at this. Where are they? They're at this Judith Leiber Studios. Anyway, they're at this beautiful, turn of the century jewelers' offices, and you explore. You're just finding out stuff by actually searching the images, right? So the idea is that we create a platform where you can have a narrative and then have all these other bits and things included in the video. And if you don't want to explore those things, we're not forcing you down that rabbit hole, right? It's just there. If you are interested in learning more about the things within the video, you can click on it or not, and you can watch it full screen and just enjoy the video. Or if you want to dig in, you can learn more. And what we're excited about is that we've had a lot of different kinds of versions, right? So we are working with an enterprise client who are making a news program in southern New Jersey, and the news is actually pretty ideal, right? If you're doing a news story, you can actually click on the person, learn what politician that person is, get the court documents that they're actually speaking about, really dig into the news story. You can also do commercials in an elegant way, because news has a problem. It's like, how do we monetize news? How do we put advertisements in front of news? You don't want to be making money off of tragedy or bad news, but if it's just, where is he? Well, he's in this town. Can I go there on vacation? Yes, if I dig in, I can find it. And just by allowing people to dig in, right, facilitate their exploration, you can generate revenue. Okay, so then we have a comedy series called Goes to Sasquatch. It's really funny. Basically, the creators are making jokes while you're watching the video. If you click on the characters and you click on the things, you get jokes for 1 minute left. There's a fashion one, there's a blogger. So the reason why we're presenting today is because we know that excited, passionate, curious creators like yourselves could break this open in a new direction. If there was someone in this audience who'd be interested in being a private data user, we teach you how to use the tool, you bring your video content and your ideas, and we would really enjoy seeing what you came up with. And the idea being that Entangled is a way to make money, also to tell stories about interrupting story, because like everybody here, we believe that content is king, and if you really believe content is king, you have to ask yourself, would you interrupt?